Hey guys, we're back outside the restoration shop with the newest addition to Wheels Through Time, the 1925 Chrysler baby car. Now, last time we caught up with you guys, we were just unloading this thing out of the trailer, got a first glance at it, kind of reviewed some of the history and some of the features of this incredibly cool 1920s baby car. Now, the cycle car is kind of a big thing in the 1910s and 20s, all handmade stuff. This one is as cool as any one we've ever seen. As you guys might remember, it's powered by a 1922 Harley-Davidson J model engine. So when we rolled this thing out of the trailer, got to review some of the features and immediately figured out that the engine was stuck. So kind of formulated a game plan. Chris and I got to work over the last couple days and actually managed to get this thing fired up, running perfectly, not without an absolute ton of work in a short amount of time, but the results speak for themselves. So 1922 baby car, or 1925-ish baby car with the 22 Harley engine, 1915 Harley-Davidson transmission. So the cool thing about the early motorcycles, you know, really early primitive stuff, single speed. In 1915, Harley came out with the transmission. It was actually a 1-year only trans box. You pedal that thing forward in order to start your motorcycle. Now this thing, incredibly rare transmission. So one of the neat things about this car is that it appears all hand built, but it's incredibly well made. The more we looked this thing over, the more incredibly neat features we kept turning up left and right. Wooden frame rails. So this thing sits on a pair of probably oak or maybe ash wooden frame rails. Some Model T components here. Actually, the front axle, incredibly cool piece. This looks like a Model T axle. You can even see some of the Ford forgings there. And it's been narrowed in the middle. You can see that there's been a little bit of work done in here, probably to cut the center out, bring it all together. So leaf spring suspension in the front actually works really well. Probably had some sort of bumper. Now this thing's sitting on tiny little, what are they, 12-inch tires, buffalo wire wheels, really neat stuff. The grill is actually a cast piece, so very well made. It's not actually a radiator, but allows wind to cool the engine. So some of the other cool features of this, beautiful area up top here behind the split hood, big piano hinge type of split hood there, really neat setup. And the thing is so incredibly complete and intact, is just remarkable. Kind of shot at the dash here, Steve. Check this out. Wooden dash, and after kind of looking at everything, we figured out exactly what it all does. Right here you've got ignition, okay? Pull out is on. In is off. Right here you've got a choke, okay? So run up top and start down at the bottom. So you peel this thing down, closes the choke, spin it over a little bit, pop that choke off and fire it up. Right over on this side is the spark advance. You can see over here, Steve, the spark advance actuating the distributor on the engine. So you've got advance full run. We like to start it on retard, so it makes it a little bit easier to start, makes that spark happen just a bit later. Over on this side, also horn, and then headlights. The headlights, tail lights, everything on this thing actually works. Really remarkable setup. Now, one of the common features of the baby cars of this era was that mid differential kind of limited slip axle. So from the engine, you've got a primary chain to the transmission and clutch, and from that transmission, actually there's a center chain that runs back to this mid axle, and then from each side you go chains to both rear wheels. Now, limited slip axles, so it's not a locked rear end. It's not your positive traction sort of setup. Each wheel can kind of slip and do its own thing. Makes cornering in this thing absolutely, you know, it just does everything that it's supposed to. So I'm not sure exactly what the steering components are, but whatever they are, they're incredibly well made. Model T-ish type steering wheel, and as you can see, there is zero slop in this steering wheel, so it just handles incredibly well. Now, in order to get this thing running, it took an incredible amount of work. Like I said, the motor was locked solid. We do all sorts of funny little tricks in order to unstick motors. Nothing worked with this one. You know the old hot plate trick. You slide the fifth burner underneath the engine, kind of enclose everything, or at least put walls up around, keep the wind out, get that heat to rise and heat the engine up to somewhat of an operating temperature. still stuck. Put it in first gear, second gear, third gear, tried to rock it back and forth, unstick it, still stuck. Chris and I ended up having to remove the hood. I'm standing up on the frame rails, yanking on cylinders, soft blow hammer, pry bar, all the ways that you're not supposed to unstick a motor. We went ahead and did it anyway. So got the motor unstuck. You know, once you get a little bit of motion, you can start to get a lot of motion. So backwards, forwards, got the cylinders, or the pistons moving up and down, and we're actually able to get each of the cylinders off one at a time. So once the cylinders were off, fresh hone, I lapped in 2 new exhaust valves. I didn't touch any of the intake pockets. All that stuff looked really, really good. 1 new spark plug and a carburetor rebuild. So for the most part, what did we do? We had 1 new spark plug, 2 new exhaust valves, a new float, and a new needle in a seat. Just a very, very few parts that we had to replace on this, and everything really went right back together like it should. So some of the other cool features is this super rad exhaust pipe, big old, it's like a kind of a custom-made exhaust manifold using your plumber style nuts that comes into, it's a 2-into-1 right off of the engine, and then you've got kind of an automotive design, maybe this may be Model T or something like it, to get to the exhaust pipe. And then custom fabricated right from here back with the muffler and the fishtail. Some of the controls, you got the hand brake here. There's also a foot brake inside of the compartment there. Shifter here, first is forward, second and third are back. So really, really neat setup. So this thing, little boat tail hot rod, we fired it up, dialed it in. The thing is running absolutely perfectly. Come on over onto this side, guys. I want to show you some of the other neat stuff over this way. So inside of the hood here, inside the engine compartment, it's just remarkable how well made everything actually is. So the engine sits way up front, of course, and it actually, the motor mount setup, I'm totally unfamiliar with this. So if any of you guys have got any sort of information on cycle cars or what sort of components were out there that were available and made specifically for cycle cars, the cradle for mounting this engine and transmission is perhaps the best work of art about the entire car. Now the car's proportional, it looks incredible. It's just like a miniature version of a much larger automobile of the same era. Kind of looks like one of those teens era race cars with the real tall hood. When you sit in here, you're way down low. Line of sight is like right through the hood ornament. Really cool setup. Now the motor and transmission cradle here, so remarkable. They're both cast pieces. So up front, you've got a cast plate that holds your front motor mount here. So it's a cast plate with a web that goes out, holds the front of the engine, standard JD, J model and JD Harley pocket valve type of motor mount. Cast piece spreads out this way, is set to sit right between frame rails of this exact distance. You can tell this is a very, very well made piece, and it's not a cobbled together, it's not welded on whatsoever. It's like this piece was produced specifically for a cycle car. Now underneath, Steve, also super cool setup. The transmission webbing right underneath, or the transmission cradle, I guess, incredibly well made cast piece. You're actually, what I'm looking at underneath is a webbed trans plate that actually extends forward and also acts with this center fin here as the rear motor mount for the back of the bottom of the engine. So Harley had the motor mount and the lower motor mounts on a Harley J engine, one up front with 2 bolts through and one down on the bottom, kind of maybe about 6:30, 7 o'clock, with 2 more bolts through. Now this piece is cast, it's got an integrated chain tensioner, incredibly well made. It's got the slotted provision to be able to adjust your transmission. Another great piece, part of this whole motor mount assembly, is this V-shaped support with the cast knuckle right in between. This big whole V is like one single cast piece. It's designed to hold the lower end or the bottom of that transmission and motor mount assembly. assembly. So incredibly well made. I've never seen another piece like it. It mounts to the wooden frame rail in the back, or the wooden frame center support in back, and just absolutely one amazingly cool piece. So we're gonna get this thing fired up for you here right now and cruise it around just a little bit. I'll fire it up and let you show or let you see exactly what everything looks like when it's spinning and working inside. We'll wick it up and warm it up a little bit. You guys can hear her go, and then we'll hop in and take her for a ride. So spark is a little bit of retard. We got ignition. As you guys can see, there's the hand crank, and it's been popping off with 1 or 2 pulls, so keep your fingers crossed. All right. You can see your rocker arms working. Snappy engine. Let it warm up here a little bit, advance the spark. Works perfectly. 1915, 100-year-old clutch. Didn't even have to take it apart. See you guys in a bit. Oh, it just works so perfect. It takes fuel, amazing. Clutch works perfectly. The brakes are excellent, thank goodness. And there you have it, guys. The newest addition to Wheels Through Time, the 1925 Chrysler Boat Tail Speedster Runabout. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys check this machine out. It's going to be right here on the red bricks all summer for you guys visiting Wheels Through Time. Thanks again for tuning in to Drive for History. Thanks for checking our YouTube and Facebook stuff out. Make sure you visit wheelsthroughtime.com. Come to the museum and see what this place is all about. We're cranking up rare machines every day. The museum that runs. Thanks for tuning in.